Bulls, did they drop it? Yes or no? Did they want to go back in May to play a semi-final before they come back and host a quarter-final? That's the question everyone's been asking me, and I don't really know.
Yeah.
But they really did leave it late.
Mate.
Just enough not to win it.
Yeah, I would love to say that the Bulls intentionally didn't win that game. I think they just weren't good enough, especially in that first half. And that was very disappointing because a Bulls team that with some of the players they have on that roster and well organized and in form with a little bit of brains could easily have won that game. Edinburgh won it not because they were great, but because the Bulls were pretty shite. And it pains me to say that.
That first 40 a horror show from the Bulls.
Horror show.
We've given everyone like about 72 hours to kind of just recover. I don't think Brendan now will ever recover. Well, Brendan, I saw his tweets. He said, I was being kind when I called it a horror show. I do agree with you. Mm-hmm. I was being diplomatic. The introduction of the 6 box off the bench, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, different class when he came on. Kane and Moody was just outstanding. Johan Goosen showed what a proper 10 does at 10. And they had that 10-minute period where they'd scored that third try in that 10-minute period and they came close. I thought the game they'd actually run away with it quite comfortably. Just took too long to actually transfer that field position into points. They fell short 34-28, 4 tries each. So in a way, it was a win-win for Jake because he will talk about how heroic it was to come from 31-7 down to basically be on their try line in the 81st minute to win it and pump them up for this weekend's URC game against Munster. But he doesn't have that complication of having to go back to Bath, which is not an easy game at the moment. They're topping the premiership. They had a big win, 60-plus points they scored against Gloucester, coached by Jan van Graan, 3 or 4 South Africans in the mix. They would have to, for those who don't know, they would have to play their 2 games, Munster and Glasgow, 2 very tough games in the URC in the next fortnight. Then come home and play their last 2 games at home. Hopefully then finish 3rd or 2nd or 4th on the table, which means they get a home quarterfinal. Fly back to England to play a semi-final with no guarantees they'll win it, and then fly back and give up that luxury of being at home for 5 games to play a home quarterfinal. I reckon it was one of those where close, no cigar, but the cigar is basically going to be smoked at Loftus.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I do think that for the URC campaign, there's no doubt that not having any responsibility or commitments in Europe helps that campaign. But there's only so many times you get an opportunity to go to the playoffs in these knockout games, and you get judged on whether you win or lose. It all starts to add up. You get a track record of not winning in these playoff games, and the Bulls need to start winning these things and need to start winning titles. I think the Sharks, no matter what happens this season, they are still the last season's Challenge Cup champions, and nobody can ever take that away from them. So what it does do is ramp up the pressure on the Bulls now to turn this URC campaign into silverware.
Or they have nothing to show for the year.
They have nothing to show for the year again. And that's my point, is that this was a golden opportunity. I think for me, the most disappointing thing is that, yes, the Bulls didn't have their best players to start it, and the guys came off the bench, but the Bulls looked underprepared. And I think that is a common trait of South African teams. I think historically, South African teams, to be a good coach, you've had to be a good selector. You've had to decide which of the plethora of great players in this country you're going to pick to play for your team and start every week. But now that we have our resources stretched by overseas contract offers and playing multiple campaigns on multiple fronts, you have to be able to win with guys that are 2nd and 3rd tier. Otherwise, you're not going to be a successful coach in modern rugby. And South African teams need to embrace that and understand that. And from a coaching perspective, I think we really do need to see an uptick in performance. I want to see our teams win because we're smarter, not necessarily because we've got the best players on the field every week, because that's not sustainable.
Or because you can introduce 6 Springboks off the bench.
Correct.
Talking of South African coaches, Johan van Graan's done an exceptional job at Bath. And Jacques Nienaber has stepped in. A lot of criticism initially because they felt he had changed the way Leinster play. He's brought a defensive intensity. He's brought a defensive structure without compensating anything on attack because of the class of player. He's really looked a lot to a guy like Geordie Barrett as well from New Zealand, who's been outstanding in the midfield for Leinster. And then obviously Achis Snyman has given us another South African flavour there. Their 2 best players are a Springbok and an All Black. Whoopie-doo, for Leinster. But Leinster, Friday night, 52-0 against Franco Smith, another South Africans, Glasgow. We talk about Stecco power plays, sustainability, the future. My goodness. If you want a blueprint for the near perfect game, You've got to give it to Leinster last Friday evening, 52-0 at home against Glasgow. This wasn't a poor Glasgow side. They've got a couple of injuries. Their midfield first choice players were out, which is a big blow for them. And they weren't like Harlequins the week before. They lost 62-0. They basically threw in the white towel, put up the white flag from the outset. They wouldn't go away easily. They were just beaten by a side that put together their most complete performance possibly ever, given the quality of the opposition.
No, I think, Franco Smith said pretty much what you've just said now after the game. He said, look, we can't even say if and buts. We were just beaten by a better team. And that's a hell of a thing to say for the URC defending champions. So, that performance was, I think if you were going to script the sort of copybook way to do it, that's what you would write down. They got incredibly turbo ball off every phase, kept the ball alive in contact. When they got opportunities, they finished them. And then on defense, there was just no purchase there. The Sharks defense just came out and smoked guys. So incredible all around.
And then Gibson Park playing behind a pack that dominant, but at the breakdown, like you said, the speed of the ball that was coming back, which just suited Prendergast's game. He's a lovely footballer. He's only young. He reminds me a lot of like kind of Stephen Larkham kind of style of play. Better kicking game than Stephen Larkham, but he's also got those soft touches, the delayed passes. He seems to read the game very well.
Yeah.
And then the power of obviously a James Lowe. And Hugo Keenan was very good at fullback. Just Argeir was there for his 55 minutes. He's played 16 matches for Leinster this season. I think nearly more than he played in 4 seasons for Munster.
Wow.
He's on in 19 games, averaged 52 minutes this season, including the 3 Springbok games, playing 4 and 5. He's the good news story that's come out of it for the Springboks. Where you look at Kane and Moody's return, the good news story for me with the Bulls defeat, he really was good and just reminded everyone of his quality under the high ball, his ability to not die with the ball. And we forget he's only 22 years old.
Insane.
And it's kind of his struggle with a bit of injury, playing in a squad system where he doesn't always start. Is he a 13? Which I think he's going to end up as a 13. But
I agree.
But right now, wow, he's so good when he's on the win. He invariably wins back the kick if it's a half-decent kick. Safe under the high ball, but he plays an effortless game. The grubbers through, this looking for support. He, to me, was my player of the Cameron Hamilton was good throughout for the 80 minutes. He led most of the individual stats. But Kane and Moody, just to see him come back, that was the highlight of watching that game in a hotel room at Pazula. You guys had left. Yoni Mard had left on Friday afternoon. I missed you guys for the weekend. We had a great time in Pazula, so thanks once again to Yaku for the Pazula Golf Classic, and congrats to all the winners, the 10 couples that were there, and showed us a good time as well. But I had a whole feast of rugger on Saturday in a hotel room, which I had to concentrate for. And I was a bit annoyed. I had to go to the gym after the Bulls lost, which was not a bad thing. And but then enjoyed the Bordeaux Munster game as well. See Abrams at fullback for Munster. I'd forgotten about him for a while.
Yeah.
But Bordeaux also very good. And then obviously that won the Challenge Cup. Racing 21-5 down, a player down after 12 minutes, come back and somehow win the game.
Amazing.
But if we talk about Stecco power plays, any try that Leinster scored would have to be worthy of that.
I would agree with that.
And then you said to me you got a couple of other favourites.
No. We spoke about Bordeaux, the final try there on that turnover to win the game, clinch the result there. And I think Davy Creel's 2 strikes for the Bulls were also very, very good. So quite tricky to settle on one because there was a survey of these tries over the weekend.
And then the Waratahs 100-meter try. Joseph Swahili, prominent. He's a good player there. He's a good player, whether he's playing 15 or 13. In their win against the Chiefs. Nice to see the Australians competitive at home, at least, in Super Rugby Pacific. And then any time a South African scores in the Japan League One, and we see a lot of them. Cheslin Colby's been on fire. Kurtley Aronson, there's talk that he may stay and extend his contract. So even though our teams, the only team that played, South African team didn't win, and the other 3 couldn't lose because they didn't play. And it's been a mix and match in the URC as well for our 4 South African teams. South Africans individually, when we look at the national picture, have been exceptional wherever they're playing, especially those eligible for the Springboks. And then what for me is the most comforting is to see how well our coaches are doing. Frans Ludiker, obviously Johan van Graan, Jacques Nienaber, the switch from World Cup winning coach of the Springboks into a head coaching role, but still secondary to Leo Cullen, who's an icon of the club. He won the Investec Champions Cup as a player. I think he won it as a coach. So for him to be making his mark, I think, and like not universally embraced when he got there because very different philosophies. I think it's fantastic. And a guy we've got to mention, Trocky Augustus,
Yes.
Northampton Saints, they're in the last 4 and he's chugging along, if you excuse the
He's
pun.
doing very well, mate.
Not in the Springbok fray at all. He's not even among 80 players that were selected, but doing hell of a well.
Yeah, no, extremely well. I mean, he really is in the vanguard of that Saints pack. And they've rumbled through to get to this stage of the season. And lovely to have another option coming through, a relative youngster, somebody who can push some of these guys in the back row options, just to have a big ball carrier like that. I championed him for the 2019 World Cup after what he did for the junior box. He was player of that tournament. Just a fabulous ball carrier. And I think maybe the time spent in Europe in those professional systems has probably helped him mature as a player, and his work rate has probably increased a bit there. So I think he's very much on Russie's radar.
So, I mean, he goes from, he's done one at Northampton Saints, he's now going to Ulster. And he announced that quite early on that he was going to Ulster, but his form seems to have picked up as well since he announced he was going. It's not like a guy who's now just playing out the season. He really is prominent in most wins that you see. He was very good for the 50 minutes he played at Loftus.
Yeah.
When the Saints beat the Bulls in that league fixture in the Investec Champions Cup. Looking at the Investec Champions Cup, no surprises that Leinster are through.
None.
I reckon for them to lose it, someone's got to hijack that bus. They've got to get 3 red cards, and I still wouldn't be safe. They were 12 against 15. This has to be the year that they are the favourites to take the double. They are just so much further ahead of anyone in terms of consistency in performance, squad quality. And we saw a very mix and match, youthful, aging veterans come here without 18 of their internationals, run the Bulls down to the last minute and beat the Sharks 10-7. That to me was, when they'll look back on their season, if they do have the success we think, that will be the most definitive fortnight of their season to show what they could do, not having to rely basically on their championship team.
Yeah, and that's kind of talks to the point that I said earlier about South African teams have to learn to win with their second and third stringers. That's what Leinster are doing. They invest, they gamble sometimes, and they find a way to make it work for them. And that is how you grow your depth for the future and make sure that it's seamless. When some of the old guys step out, you don't have a lull for 2 seasons while you rebuild the team. So massively important. I think Leinster would be deserved favourites to win the whole thing. I do have a sneaky suspicion that Bordeaux may upset 1 or 2 teams and could potentially be in the running to win this thing too. I just have a funny feeling about those guys.
And what I do love is obviously the big Cardiff, 23rd, 24th of May. Friday night, Challenge Cup final, EPCR, Investec Champions Cup final on the Saturday night. It's a neutral venue.
Right.
And that does play a massive
Big
part,
time.
So the French visit of Toulouse to Toulon, 21-18, Thomas Ramos.
What a game.
That to rely on his boot to get through there. Toulouse without Dupont. I mean, we challenge whether he's the greatest he's ever been, but he's a great player.
He's a great
and you
player.
can see how they have missed his leadership,
Yeah.
how they have missed him. But again, French derby playing away from home.
Yeah.
I was surprised that you actually picked Toulon to win. I was surprised they ran them that close, and many will feel they should have won that game. They're there, and I think they need to be there if there's going to be anyone who potentially could counter the Leinster influence. Leinster being there, Toulon being there, and who's that 4th one that got in for the Champions Cup?
So Leinster in, Toulon are there, Bordeaux are there, and Northampton.
Bordeaux Beagles.
Oh, yeah.
Bordeaux, yeah. So you kind of pick those would be the 4 teams that would be there in terms of squad depth, the way they've played in the domestic competitions.
Yeah.
And then in the Challenge Cup, just shocked that racing away from home, because French teams do tend to fall away.
It was brilliant.
If it doesn't go well
Brilliant
for them.
performance.
And so they won the receiving end of several decisions. We talk about it every week. Neertland Forshire gets a 6-match suspension, down to 4. He pleads not guilty. His appeal is not even entertained by an all-Welsh committee.
Yep.
The same referee is faced with a very similar situation. It's either penalty, yellow card, no red. Some bizarre decisions. Our Italian friend made probably the most bizarre I've seen. The guy who initially saw nothing wrong with Neertland Forshire's tackle, play on, then saw a replay and felt the guy's got to basically be banned for life, even though he was a half a meter off the air flying in for the tackle. He decides that Munster are deserving of a penalty try when their bloke hanging out on the wing had not even received the ball, so there was no guarantee that he would even catch it. There was five cover defenders coming across, including one of the quickest guys in world rugby, Damien Pinot, the winner. Luca, the scrum half who was charging. This guy would have to catch the ball, accelerate, and run 18 yards. He was convinced he would catch it. They would never catch him, and it's a try. Penalty try. Now, you go from there to the Connacht game. The guy's going to score. The Racing defender takes him out with a head clash, brutally. He gets shown the card, rightfully so. He's been cited as well. The referee has a debate whether the guy would have actually scored, and he's 5 meters from the try line.
It's right there.
And in any case, you take the bloke out of the game.
Yeah.
For the professional foul, and it becomes a try.
Like he's not there, yeah.
Now, if I'm someone watching rugby union for the first time, I wouldn't have a clue as to what's going on.
Spot on.
And try and explain it to someone like, why did that guy get a card? Well, why didn't he get a card? Well, and why didn't he get...
No, spot on. I can't argue with you on any of those points in that Munster-Bordeaux game, I think, as well. That Munster 7 just gets absolutely dinged on the back of his pip at the breakdown. He's writhing around on the ground, holding his head. It's just play on. Not even a penalty, no TMO review, nothing. So there is just no consistency around it. And I think it's because it's a very technical issue that keeps kind of evolving. It's not simple. It should... when you transgress the laws, it should be a penalty. There shouldn't be all this degree of danger. And how are we asking referees to tap dance through this whole process is just ridiculous. It's not sustainable.
And then everything was supposedly introduced. The law change that I absolutely hate, and I don't hate many things, but I hate this, is when you're on the attack, you're on the charge, and you get held up somehow, and instead of it being a 5-yard scrum, and you have a scrum dominance, you have to take a 40 rugby league style kickoff because it's going to speed up the game. What's happened in the old days, it would be held up scrum, 1 minute, we restart. Now sometimes there's a 2-minute delay to see if he was held up.
No, mate.
Then the restart comes. Then the bloke takes a drop goal, misses. We have another restart. Go into this TMO, sometimes for 2 minutes. Players dropping on the field of play, they're not anywhere near the point of play. So we stop the game for that as well. Then some guy takes his boot off. We stop the game for that as well. Then some guy's line, 1 meter inside the field, but he's on the wing. We stop the game for that as well. So I don't buy any of this. It's done to speed up the game. It's done to depower certain teams.
Yeah, and it's also done to make a spectacle of the safety narrative. That's the point of it, is to make it front and center of this whole debate. So we slow the game down to check everything to make sure players are safe. Look, I'm totally against TMOs. I've said it before. I would get rid of all replays that make the ref in charge. The one thing that the Varsity Cup has got right in borrowing from the NFL is this white card thing. I quite like that. I think each team should have a white card where a player can go to the referee and say, I would like for you to go back and check this particular thing. So we stick with the referee on all his calls, but a player can go, we think you missed this, go back and check it. And if he's right, he keeps his white card. He's still got his challenge. And if he's wrong, he's lost his challenge for the game.
What happened, we tried that in the Rainbow Cup here when we were coming out of COVID. Stephen Kutzoff was getting everyone right.
I remember.
There was one game where he challenged the referee 5 times and he kept his white card.
I remember.
So now all that's also going to do is further embarrass referees.
Yes.
And show them up. Because if you've got a captain who understands the game, who reads the game well, and I remember the one from Kitsy, he eventually got to the captain and said, I think it was 40 meters back, about 4 phases back, and that happened. He was spot on of how they got the call wrong back then. So I'm all for that, but it won't be introduced because, again, the protective mechanism, the untouchables, the match officials, there's no consequence to them the next week. Correct. But it certainly doesn't add to the spectacle of any of this.
No.
When you see the game held up for so long, and then you see the safety being applied in a very different
selective way.
So if you go to Super Rugby Pacific, there was that incident with Ruben Love. Will Jordan, Crusaders against the Hurricanes, cool game.
Scores.
He lets the ball roll over the dead ball area, but he's manipulating the flow, and he times it to perfection. Ruben Love sees that he can't actually get to it, dives in and basically straight at his knees. But for a turn, that's him gone for the season. That's his knee ligaments torn. Play on. Not even a blink that this could be player safety. But a guy slightly upright in the tackle, head collision, red card. It's just madness at the moment.
Because you can't have a class action lawsuit around knee injuries, but you can fabricate that this concussion thing is deadly. We're going to see thousands of dead rugby players. You can hype it up. I think get rid of all of this stuff. I like the way they ref that Ruben Love thing, and I think we should do that in rugby in general. If it's a high tackle, it's a penalty, and you track those high tackles, and when a player has got 5 high tackles penalties against him, he's immediately suspended for 4 matches. I think that's the way to deal with it, not the circus of TMO replays and agonizing over frame by frame in game. It just slows the whole thing down.
But if you look at rugby league, they took the wrong things from rugby league. They took a kick out because they don't have a scrum they have it as a restart. They don't have it as a power play.
Yeah.
A stecco power play. They don't have that.
There we go.
A point of difference.
Yeah.
Let's just connect, engage, and let's get the game going. Now, what they also have as a system is they put you on report in the game.
There we go.
And you know you're going to a disciplinary on Monday, you're probably not going to play for a month. But the game doesn't stop so much.
Correct, mate.
It's like, Zels, you're on report, mate.
There we go.
For what? For that. And some guys know they're going to be there every Monday, okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're getting so much wrong that is really harmful to the sport. Watching it. And then, like I said, it's not often that I normally watch the highlight packages. If I need to watch a game 2 or 3 times on a Sunday, I will. In the early hours of the morning if I can't sleep. But I was in a hotel room where I had time and I could actually watch a lot of different games from Japan, from Australia, New Zealand, Challenge Cup, Investing Champions Cup. The inconsistency was the only thing that was consistent when it came to the application of the law by referees and TMOs. And then you've got a TMO that is dominant, overrules a referee. You've got a timid TMO that gets overruled by a referee. And so which one is it? I also don't get this thing that when a referee is poorly positioned, that he can't say to the TMO, I was on the wrong side, try or no try. He says, no, mate, I've got no try. Tell me otherwise. You've got no try because you never saw it. So how can you even make a call on it? Yeah. So it's just, it's infuriating. And I go back to even it was 40-15. Munster totally out of the game. They get given the most bizarre penalty try. And it's 40-22. They score again. It's 40-29. All of a sudden, there's 2 guys off. The dynamic of a game changes in 3 minutes down to the most absurd decision of probability, possibility, etc. So, if you look at all these tournament organizers, fantastic rugby players, fantastic matchups, the officiating remains diabolical. It remains inadequate. To the big boys at the EPCR, in the URC, fix it, man. Change it. Because it's not doing the tournaments any favors. If anything, especially in the context of where you're trying to garner support for a competition in South Africa, like the Investing Champions Cup, the Challenge Cup. People don't want to watch it when they start seeing that happening over and over and over.
It's true. It's true.
You make a good point.
You make a good point,
Uli. You make a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. The context of that was when I was with the Boks in 2003. Uli Smit, the wonderful Uli Smit, was a team doctor. He had played many tests for the Springboks. And he lost the plot with Rudolf Stroyle, who was the coach at that stage. Basically gave a tirade for about 10 minutes of what was wrong in the setup. And all Rudolf could say at the end is, you make a good point, Uli. And that took the wind out of his sails. So I guess I made a good point there.
Yeah.
That all put behind us. Did you manage to get to watch any of Super Rugby Pacific?
I saw bits and pieces of it, mate. I see the cream is rising to the top. You've got the Crusaders and the Chiefs, mate. They're right up there. And then you've got a couple of Aussie teams below them.
Well, you got the Crusaders who are looking good. Yeah. They're 6 from 8. People were very surprised when they dropped their game to the Samoans,
yes,
as we'll call them. Mohana, 45-29 at home. Second most points ever scored against them in this competition.
Okay.
And then the Chiefs going to Sydney and losing to the Waratahs. So the Waratahs have been outstanding at home, not so good on the road. They took some big ones in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But it's nice to not see 5 New Zealand teams in the top 5 there.
Correct.
So you've got the big one in Australia was that the Brumbies so comfortably beat the Reds in Brisbane. Yeah. You've also got a case of Les Kiss, who's the Reds coach, who has been tipped to be
the Wallabies
Joe Smith's successor. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you. Les Kiss played for the Kangaroos on the wing.
Okay.
And he was a very well-known player in rugby league. Which rugby union team did he first get involved in?
Oh, mate, I'm going to say the Waratahs.
I'm going to say the Springboks, okay? So back in 2000.
Oh, right.
Back in 2000, Harry Fillion took over and he said to, I was with Harry at the time, advisor in communication, said, get hold of the Aussies. I need some defense coaches. I want some consultancy work done. And the recommendation from Tim Lane, who would come over was the Wallabies assistant coach, also played for the Wallabies when they won the 99 World Cup. Harry had appointed him to be the backs coach, and he said, I want a guy, Frank Panisi, who's been outstanding. I want Mick Byrne from the AFL, great kicking and skills coach. Mm-hmm. Mick Byrne came over. We in Plenenberg Bay, we had Mick Byrne. We didn't have Frank Panisi because we went over to Australia and we saw him and he said, I can't make it. There's a guy called Les Kiss that I want to introduce you to. He's a very good defensive coach. Budgie, because he used to talk like that, he got a nickname Budgie. So he came over, the players absolutely loved him. And he's just so invested in the players and the kind of his craft. And it was the first time in 2000 that we were exposed to these kind of defensive systems, overs, unders, lines. Our guys were like, what the hell is going on? It's a very technical application of defense back in the day to the Springbok players. But Les came over, he was very good. Mick Byrne came over, he was outstanding. Even Markgraf would sit on the side of the field, Andre Markgraf, and say, how does he put that ball right up there in terms of restarts, in terms of up and unders, the aerial skills that he came and kind of shared his knowledge with. They were all going to come and be permanently appointed. There was this whole thing, we can't have Australians in the South African setup.
That.
Funny how that looks now, that Springbok setup. It's a League of Nations that's up there. So Harry definitely 20 years ahead of his time, 25 ahead of his time. Mick Byrne went on to win 2 World Cups with the All Blacks. With the Wallabies. He's now the head coach of Fiji, having coached Fiji Drua. Les Kiss went on to coach Ulster, went on to coach the Reds. He's not possibly going to be, he's probably going to be the Wallabies coach. And it all started in Plettenberg Bay in 2001.
Just up the road from Pazula, mate.
Just 2001 with those guys. So we tend to forget where we actually were 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. But the South African rugby certainly wasn't ready for it. So a little bit of trivia there about Les Kiss and his Reds.
Beautiful.
Nice little story, Beautiful. So we'll claim him as one of ours.
They say that he may be the Wallabies coach without relinquishing his Reds role, and I think that's very clever too. I think they'll get the best out of Australian rugby like that.
Yeah, 50 Wallabies will be in the Reds. Everyone will go play for the Reds. Be like what I think they were trying to do at the Sharks, put the whole Springbok team there.
That's not a bad way to restart, mate.
Like they've done at Leinster.
Cohesion.
Like they do at Toulouse.
Exactly.
Like they did at the Crusaders.
Exactly.
The guys played for 7 months together before the international season.
Yeah.
Reminds me of when we played in 2002, when we played New Zealand, and the Crusaders went through the season unbeaten and won Super Rugby, 13 from 13. 11 wins, a semi-final and a final. And we played them in Wellington. John Mitchell was the All Black coach. And he picked Christian Cullen and 14 Crusaders. and his point was, listen here, I've had 2 weeks. I'm going to have a week with the squad. Why would I change the core of a team that has beaten everyone and every player that I'll be playing against?
Makes
beaten
total
them.
Sense.
And then we were 13-0 up after 15 minutes. And in the Friday press conference, Corne Krige had said, I thought we were coming to play the All Blacks, not the Red and Blacks. and everyone's like, whoa, what? They're the Crusaders. And so different jersey, different colours, same result. We lost 40-21 and 41-20. Scotty Robinson scored a try as well. 5 tries they scored. So, yeah, when you get it right like that, not a bad investment. But a little bit of trivia about Les Kiss, and we wish him well. It'll be great to catch up with him when the Wallabies are in town next year, because Joe Smith will still lead them in the Rugby Championship. But you may find that he's integrated at that time to just shadow a bit. But also one of those guys is not a particularly controversial chap in terms of the media, very media shy, player's player. He took us up to watch a couple of league games up the coast, the north of Queensland, and he was very popular as well. It's one of my first real live rugby league games.
Oh, wow.
Very different, yeah.
Okay.
Walking around the stadium, he was, Les Kiss. And Frank Panisi, GM of the Melbourne Storm, they went on to win a couple of premierships, still there. All very successful. And we had them in this country, similar to what Russie's now got. Great coaches that he's brought in. As we said, the only 2 missing now, Floxeliers, goal-kicking coach. And Monty said he started off with Morné Steyn and obviously Jacques Nienaber when he comes back. Hopefully he doesn't go to Ireland, he comes back to us.
Yeah. Oh, Les Kiss has got the perfect name to be coaching in France.
All right. Yeah, I see old Imad, he's going around with the camera. Everything all right there, Imad? Everything's just great. Okay, looking at the games this weekend, Zels, give us your wrap and your rundown.
Okay, Edinburgh host the Sharks. They're on their way there. Friday night, they kick off. Edinburgh on their fast track against the Sharks team. We've had some time to prepare for this one. Irvin and Apaleli Fassi, part of the touring group that have been named to play in this tour for the Sharks. And I think It's going to be very interesting to see whether those guys are available to play, whether they're ready to start, do they come off the bench. And I see Sean Everett has been talking about the Biltong series. You know, they've beaten the Lions, they've beaten the Bulls, now they're going to beat the Sharks in this Biltong series. I think their time might be up. I think Edinburgh, I know that they'll be motivated and their confidence will be high, but I think the Sharks team have had enough time to do this. They have a long history with Sean Everett. They've got some heavyweights coming back. And the Sharks need to kind of kick on now for this last 4 matches in the URC before they get to the playoffs, retain their place in the top 4, potentially apply pressure on the Bulls. I think the Sharks might actually take this one.
Well, there's something like 18 Springboks in the Sharks squad. One more than there was with the Bulls squad.
Yes.
So, and I go back to that Bulls game, the quality of the 6 Springboks that came off the bench, and there were 5 in the starting pack. They should never have lost their game to Edinburgh. You can tell me as much as you want, but they were loaded with Scottish internationals. Scotland's never ranked higher than 5th in the world.
Yep.
They never won a World Cup. We have. We won 4 World Cups. We ranked 1 consistently in the world for the last 6 years. When our Springboks come off the bench, they should be a lot better than their incumbent Scottish internationals.
Correct.
So when I look at the makeup of the Galacticos, as I like to call them, the Sharks, they should not even be giving it a second thought that they're going to win this game on Friday night. That said, how the hell did they lose at home to Leinster? Okay?
Precisely, mate.
They may say that the conditions were a leveler. It's terrible to play at home in that humidity, in the wet, that they're a better side on the road. Their second tier is not that great on the road. They conceded 50 against Bordeaux, Beagles, as I like to call them, Burdocks.
Yeah.
So I've got Eben and Apele Fasi maybe not even be involved this weekend. If they are, we don't know the sides yet. You can follow that on our WhatsApp group closer to the time on this festive long weekend. For some, a religious fair. For others, just a long weekend. You take your pick. But there's rugby continues in the professional era. No one takes a day off here.
That's the truth.
So I've got the Sharks to be too strong. Inspirationals here. And I think now that they got to a semi-final, Edinburgh, their focus will be the Challenge Cup.
Exactly.
They want to win something because they're never going to win the URC.
Correct.
They can get into the Champions Cup through winning that. They get a free entry into it.
Yeah.
And they bunched. They don't have to fight then to make that top 8. I really see them winning, and I see them winning well. Mm-hmm. Once I've seen the squads, I'll give my scoreline. We'll do it on the WhatsApp group, as you will yours. But I've got them winning. And who's the real Shark there?
We're aligned. Yeah, exactly. Who is the real Shark? End of the Biltong series. Saturday, Lions host Benetton in the afternoon. It's the early game for South Africans. 1:45 kickoff. Benetton are tricky customers. And the Lions will want to get back to winning ways. It's been a bit of a drought for them. So that's going to be an interesting one. What's your take on that?
You tell me. I mean, you're a big Lions man. I think you head up their comms at PR last time I saw.
I
know you
Lions.
moonlight for the Lions. Occasionally I see you even the mascot. You're wearing the Lions jersey.
Yes, I do love the Lions. I think that they can definitely win this game. Benetton and the Lions, there's a bit of a synergy there in their sort of positioning in this competition, right? Underdogs who need to overachieve. Benetton obviously better off than the Lions at the moment, who are 14th place. But I think the Lions back at home, on the high felt, on the fast track, in familiar conditions. I think they're going to have too much for Benetton. Benetton will put up a good fight, but I see the Lions winning it in the fourth quarter.
Okay, so at the moment we're 2 from 2. 1 home, 1 away. The other games, the Stormers are playing Connacht in Cape Town.
Correct.
And the fourth game, obviously, is the Bulls
at Munster.
In Limerick against Munster.
Yeah.
Hell of hard games. I've actually got the Bulls to win in Munster because I think you'll see those Springboks starting. Again, the scoreline, once I've seen the 2 respective squads, and obviously I've got the Stormers. I never back against the Stormers. I've got them to win against Connacht at the DHL Stadium. I think it's going to be a 4 from 4 weekend for South Africans. We'll be back then for the month of April into May. It's going to be good times for the South Africans in the URC as we push to get 4 teams into the top 8. We're going to get those individual scores out a bit later for those who are putting a flutter on the game, or they may play in their fantasy leagues. Always take either my advice or Zels, because one of us is always going to be wrong, and so you're going to win. Okay.
Well, on that note, I'm not going to pick 4 South Africans to win this week. I don't think the Bulls win at Limerick. I do think the Stormers beat Connacht. So, but let's see the squads and we'll make our call.
So you've got a 3 from 4 at the moment. I've got a 4 from 4. It can be 4 from 4 por favor, but it can also change. But Thursday morning, we may be saying it's a 1 from 4, just the Stormers, okay? But once we see the scores. If you look at the context of these South African teams going into this Easter weekend, Hell of important for the home teams. They've got to get back on that horse.
Massively. Stormers and Lions on this four match at home stretch need to make the most of that, climb back into playoff contention. I believe both of them will do that. And then for the Bulls and the Sharks, it's about keeping that home playoff alive by staying in the top four. Some tricky fixtures coming up for both of those two teams, so the tours are massively important for them. But I think we're going to see 4 South African teams make the playoffs.
That would be great. 4 South African teams in the top 8. We can't go through by courtesy of a Challenge Cup win. We're out of that. We're not in the Investec Champions Cup. Those 2 competitions are down to the final 4. That happens in the first week of May, the semi-finals. The 23rd, 24th of May is the finals. We have no more excuses in terms of we're playing in parallel competitions unless we loaned a few players out to the SA Cup and to Francie and his Cheetahs. The SA Cup is still going on. Follow those results on SA Rugby Magazine. You can get it on our newsletter, preview, review, and obviously our WhatsApp channel. But this weekend, it's full-on Vodacom United Rugby Championship again. There's a lot of schools rugby going on as well. Zels is in a good mood. 4 South African teams are playing again. I'm in a good mood. The Stormers will win again. And Zels, you're going to be on the road this weekend? You've been traveling?
We'll be out and about. I'm not sure exactly where we'll be, but I'm definitely catching all 4 of these games.
All right, and as cliche as it sounds, guys, it's not. It's from the heart. If you're on the road, Jesus, just travel safely. That wasn't meant to be a blasphemous expression, but just travel safely and kind of be kind, be good, make your intents. And the greatest intent you can make on a rugby field is for 4 South African wins out of 4.